This past Sunday, we started a new series in our Adult Forum Sunday School class called Worship Wise. It's going to be an ongoing series for the next 6-7 weeks that are going to be taking a look at why we do what we do on Sunday mornings when we gather in worship, where those things come from, what the history of them, what we think the meaning is, and how we deal with the variety of different practices and traditions across, 2,000 years of church history. But we started with a really, really important question for us to catch up on in case you missed our first conversation. Who is worship really for? Like who is it aimed at? That's a really important question. And at one level, the answer might seem obvious. Well, it's God, right? Worship is aimed at God, right? It's our gathering in prayer pointed toward God, so to speak. Our confession of sins to God. Our bringing of offerings and gifts and tithes to God. Our singing of hymns of praise to God. So in a sense, worship is for God. It's oriented toward God. It's about, you could say, aiming our hearts to God as opposed to all the other things that are vying for our attention and our allegiance. We said on Sunday, we live in a culture where there are a lot fewer golden calves out there for people to worship, but there are an awful lot of more subtle idols that compete to be our gods in our life. So it may be less a matter of I'm going to church to worship God, the God of the Bible, instead of Thor or Zeus or Apollo or Baal, but more our choice to be gathered in worship of God is a way of saying, no, I won't worship my money or my status or my title or my nationality or my flag or my political party or my tax bracket or any of the other things that vie for our most deeply held allegiance and worship, right? So, all right, at one level, worship is for God. It's aimed at God. But here's the thing. The particular character of the God we come to know in Jesus, this God who's revealed in the ancient stories of the Hebrew scriptures and the prophets and the Psalms, as well as the story and the life of Jesus and the witness of his disciple community in the New Testament, that particular God has a clever way of turning the tables on us. So that just at the moment we think we're here to do a favor for God. Here, God, we're here to sing your praise. Here, God, we're here to scratch your ego. Here, God, we're here to make you feel good. God turns things around and goes, no, oh, bless your pea-picking little hearts. God turns things around, and because of who God is, gives to us. In the very moment we think we've come to say something to God, sing our praise to God, bring our gifts to God, God turns around and gives to us. At the heart of our pattern of worship as Christians are these central moments where God comes to us, right? The word from God spoken to us. And sure, you could say we offer our hearts and our ears and our minds to listen and to be shaped and transformed, but the arrow sort of turns around, doesn't it? It's instead of us up, if we imagine God is up, us up to God, it's about God coming to us, giving gifts to us, right? Speaking, here's the good news you need. Here's Christ coming to us, being fed at the table, right? Where Christ's gifts are given to us. The very same bread and wine that along with our monetary gifts we present at the offering, God turns around and goes, this is for you instead. There's this beautiful story early in the story of the life of David, the king, in the book of 2 Samuel. Where he's feeling pretty comfortable. He's established and consolidated his power. He's got a palace he's living in, and he sort of thinks to himself, how embarrassing, I'm still letting the dwelling place of God, the old Ark of the Covenant, live in a tent out back, and we don't have a proper temple, a house for God to live in. So he comes up with this plan and announces to the prophet Nathan, I'm going to build God a house, right? It's an act of worship for God. And the response comes back from God. I know you meant well, David, but I'm God. I don't need a house, right? I don't need anything you can offer me. When in all the generations that I've been with your people have I ever said I needed to have a building to live in? No, I'm not going to let you build a house for me, but I'll build a house for you. And now this becomes a moment where God's promise is given to David and his family after that. This is the nature of our God, right? That God always is this generous giver who doesn't resort to transactions, right? I do this for you, you do this for me, but instead this graciousness that always takes the initiative. That's another important distinctive we talked about in our first session this past Sunday. That the character of the God we know from the scriptures, from the story of ancient Israel, the story of Jesus, is different from the character of the god, say, in ancient Norse mythology, right? When they worship Zeus or Odin or Thor in the Greeks or the Norse mythology, those gods tended to be, pretty capricious, pretty just like human beings, but just with more power, right? Pretty vengeful and spiteful and mean and jealous and insecure. In ancient Viking mythology, right? It wasn't about grace at all. It's whoever's the most valiant warrior gets to go to Valhalla, but the rest of us end up in some other unpleasant netherworld, right? In the Greek thinking with the gods like Zeus and Apollo and Hades and Poseidon, none of those gods were particularly generous or loving or gracious. They were, like human beings. They could be fine one day, nice, and then spiteful the next moment if they woke up grumpy. The kind of God we have, with the particular character of the God we have, makes a difference in the way we worship, right? If you lived in ancient Greece and offered up sacrifices to Zeus, you sort of assumed you had sort of a transactional relationship. I gave my sacrifice to Zeus, Zeus owes me a favor, and I can expect to cash in on that at some other point. The God we meet in the scriptures is different because God's character is different. So for whatever else worship is, it brings us into the presence intentionally with as many distractions as possible removed, to know this God, this unique, surprising, peculiar, particular God that we meet in Jesus, who's got a way of taking those moments we think we're doing something for God and turning them right around and giving gifts to us. So maybe at most we could say worship is that moment when we aim our hearts at God, maybe with the best intention, if I'm going to do something for God, and God turning things right around and giving a gift back to us, God's word come to us, God's presence and grace mediated in the sacraments, in the water at baptism, and the bread and the cup at communion. This is the beginning of our conversation, but we hope you'll join us each successive Sunday as we do a deeper dive into all the elements of our Sunday pattern of worship and the history. Where did they come from? What do we think is happening? Why do we do them? Why do other traditions not do them? And what are some of the unique practices here we have in this congregation? Bring your questions, bring your wonderments, bring all the things and opinions and thoughts you have about what happens on Sunday morning, all with the thought that we're aiming our hearts at God only to have God turn things around and grace us at the moment we thought we were doing something for God. Join us for this ongoing series, Worship Wise, here on Sunday mornings at 9 at Community of Christ.